Hi, this is Dee, and you're listening to my podcast, Let Me Clear My Throat. Tonight, I'm going to do a podcast on something that I feel needs to be talked about more, and honestly, I think it's not taken as serious as it needs to be, due to the fact of basically who the victims are. I mean, quite bluntly. We're going to be talking about prison rape this evening. I'm not really for sure on how long this is going to be. I have a lot of information that I want to go over, but I've briefly read over it, and it's mind-boggling on how, as society in a whole, that we think that any type of rape or any type of forceful anything is acceptable and can be looked over in the sense of finding excuses on not how to have proper intervention, especially in cases where the victim is basically has no way of outlet. They are pretty much confined into a structure where they basically lay their lives at the will of other authority-like figures that are supposed to ensure their safety. And even though there are only a certain number of, correctional officers and government officials or whoever that are available, there obviously is more population of prisoners than there are staff. However, I believe that this needs to change because there are a lot of inmates that are trying to serve their time and do what's right and rehabilitate and go in there. Some of them may have a petty crime and some may be really violent and dangerous offenders, but that should not matter. The fact of the matter is still a human being and is still being violated with a crime that is being taken place in a facility that is trying to sentence and hold somebody accountable for their crime, yet letting other crimes be committed in there at the same time, if that makes sense. But I'm going to start this off. I was looking up in this article on uscode.house.gov, Title 34, Chapter 303, Prison Rape Elimination, Crime Control and Law Enforcement. And it defines rape as the following. The carnal knowledge or oral sodomy, sexual assault with an object or sexual fondling of a person forcibly or against the person's will. Or the carnal knowledge or sodomy, I'm probably saying that wrong, sexual assault with an object or sexual fondling of a person that forcibly or against the other person's will, where the victim is incapable of giving consent because of his or her youth or his or her temporary or permanent mental or physical incapacity. Or the carnal knowledge or oral sodomy, sexual assault with an object or sexual fondling of a person achieved through the exploitation of the fear or threat of physical violence or bodily injury. So that being said, that comes straight from the uscode.house.gov. So this is basically a government site that lists basically their findings, and it has like the chapter and title and all this stuff, so you can find it all. So this is supposedly their research and words and blah blah blah, but we're going to go over that here in a minute. First, I want to touch base on some things that I found on www.nsvrc.org. Basically finding and help of support. Obviously, I don't know how to say all this here, because, I have not been in prison, but I know quite a few people that have, and like I said, rape or any type of forcement on oneself alone is a lot to shatter somebody as a human being, and not only that, but most people look at it as a female crime, basically. Women are raped and stuff. But there are many, many males in this world that go, basically, I don't know how to say it. They're not really, there's a lot of men that are afraid to come forward. And just, I'll put it bluntly, or they don't know how to, or they don't know how to deal with it. They don't know how to deal with their emotions or their feelings. They may feel less of a man. They may question their sexuality. They may feel ashamed as if it was their fault. I mean, the list goes on and on. But when you're in prison, it doesn't matter if you're male or female. It doesn't matter if you're a prisoner or a correctional officer or government official or whomever in there. Because there are actually staff members that have also been raped by inmates. And that being said, there has to be something in an intervention sooner than later. And I know that's easier said than done from the outside looking in, because I'm sure, like, on both sides being an advocate, like, they have limited resources on their staff. And so say you have maybe one correctional officer with, I don't know, let's hypothetically say 10 inmates. I don't know exactly how many they're allowed to have at a time. Let's just say they have 10 of them and there's one correctional officer. Now, obviously, it's a no-brainer that 10 people are capable of overpowering one person. And especially, let's hypothetically say they're in there for violent crime. And if they're in there for a long time, they don't care. Whatever. But you have one person in there that is handling 10 people, have 10 people's lives and safety in their hands. And that is 10 individuals that need to be safe from each other, but also from other people, as well as their correctional officer. Because there are inmates that have also been raped by their correctional officers and by other government officials. So there's a lot going on in there, while other people just basically sit back, respectfully I say this, and make excuses on how this is supposed to be okay. Or they didn't know, or it's overlooked, or we don't have the correct amount of staff to be able to handle this, or we don't know how to handle it, or it doesn't happen as often as what people says it does. And I say that is bullshit. Straight up. So if there's not enough people in there to help, then get more people. Because you are willing to take taxpayers' money to house prisoners, to supposedly rehabilitate them, to let them out of prison, to not give them any type of life to be able to be rehabilitated, because even when they get out, society still condemns them and limits them on their livelihood of getting a job, getting a house, getting this, that, and the other. So they're still going to serve a sentence, even though they've already been released and done their sentencing of their time. But then you take somebody that's in there, they're supposed to be getting rehabilitated, but they're not getting rehabilitated, per se, because they're not getting adequate handling. They're not getting what they are due justice on. When you are arrested and you go to do your time and you're sentenced, nowhere in that sentence does it say, and thou might be in your shower or be instructed to come to your correctional officer's, station so you can be violently raped on occasion. Or you might be sold to another inmate for a pack of cigarettes and have to play their bitch. And then you got people that are criminals that are in there and they're trying to actually do right by themselves. And then they're trying to pay for their crime. They're trying to work through their crime. They're trying to rehabilitate into a new person and get out to be able to have life. But while they're in this facility that's supposed to be rehabilitating them, a crime is committed on them that's even more of it might as well just be a life sentence to them. And they might only be doing 6 months, but now they've got a life sentence of something that they have to carry. And if they go to authorities, most of the time authorities just want to sweep it under the rug. And that's not cool. That's not right. So we're going to talk about this and see what we can do. And I've got some resources on here and some places and websites and stuff to be able to redirect some people if they need to. And there are some contradicting sections on here that I've discovered where they say certain things, and then obviously in a different section they say something different. Surprise, surprise. But anyway, we're going to go on. We're going to read this. I'm going to read this to you, and obviously, if you know me, I'm going to have my own thoughts on this too. So it starts off, There is a national network of community-based rape crisis centers and local organizations who support the needs of sexual assault survivors. These centers exist across the United States to provide supportive services to victims of sexual assault. While the specific services available vary by location, services are confidential and may include the following: advocacy, accompaniment during medical exams and law enforcement interviews, education, follow-up services, and referrals to other resources. Every state and territory also has an organization designed to coordinate resources and represent that state or territory as its coalition. The NSVRC maintains a directory of organizations that list state and territorial sexual assault coalitions, victim survivor support organizations, and local communities of color sexual assault organizations. And then it gives you where you can contact different programs and different centers and stuff if you need help or redirection or need resources. One of them is called RAINN, RAINN, which represents Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network. And it organizes a national sexual assault telephone hotline. And the hotline is a referral service that can be put into contact with your local rape crisis center. You can also call the hotline, and that number I have. It is 800-656-4673. And like I said, you can also go on to RAINN's website, and that's RAINN. And they have an online service. They have an online chat service. Everything is confidential. And there's a lot of information on there, too, for victims, but also organizations to be able to equip their employees and their staff on handling these type of situations and also preventage. But one thing that I would want to say is that you can have all the stuff in place. You can do all the training. You can have all the resources available. You can have all the right things in place and whatnot. And in the end of it, what is that going to do if you don't implement any of it? Because you can sit here and do all the things and say, oh yeah, we got this and that and the other, and we got our training in. Let me have my little certificate that I can print out on my computer to say I did my little training thing. But if that's not implemented, what good is it but on a piece of paper? Because the only person that it is going to affect on your little training process is the victim that's going to walk out of there. If they walk out of there. Just my thought. Know your rights and options. Victims of crime have rights that depend on the laws of the location, the state, territory, and the tribe where the crime has occurred. Some of the laws that might apply to you if a person has committed the crime of sexual assault against you may include the following: availability of a forensic exam rape kit at no cost to you, confidential access to victims' advocates, time limits, statutes of limitations on certain legal actions, mandated reporting of the assault if you are a vulnerable person, child or elder adult, testing or storage of evidence kits, and possible financial compensation for you as a crime victim. It is also a good idea to contact the rape center in the area where you were assaulted, since they should be familiar with the laws that apply in your area. Now I'm going to say this. So if you are incarcerated, and let's say you are raped or you are violated, and you are able to handle going to somebody to report the crime. First off, I would like to say my heart goes out to you, because that alone is a huge, huge step. But also, too, what do you do if you go to the authorities and you reach out to them, you tell them your story, and they make you feel either one of a few ways: that you just need to deal with it and bunk up with somebody and just have, basically be somebody's bitch to protect yourself while you're there. They ignore you. they don't believe you, or they take it seriously and they do the correct paperwork and whatever. And then do you receive retaliation then? Because then if the person that has done it to you, you're still sitting out there vulnerable. So your life is still, even now, more in jeopardy if that person finds out that you have now went and basically snitched on them. And then therefore you're a bigger victim. So are they going to protect you now if you do that? And how does that work? Because if you get moved, you think the word don't get around in prisons? Even if you get transferred to another one, they're going to know your story. And somehow, even though people are behind bars and they're confined into these little bitty cell rooms, it gets around. And it travels. And people in different facilities and different places and even different cell blocks, they already know. Even if the correction officers and the government officials don't, the inmates do. That being said, then that leaves you in a position, what the F are you going to do? So then you're stuck and you don't know how to feel and you got all these mixed emotions, and at the same time, you're still continuously being violated. And let's say hypothetically you do go to authorities. Is that and if that authority figure is the one who is harming you, but yet that's the one you're supposed to go to, how do you handle that? And if you reach out to somebody, say in your family or on the outside of your walls to help you, you write a letter or whatever, who's to say your letter is not going to be intervened and discarded to save the face of the prison or the face of the person who is violating the inmate? So it kind of leaves you at a catch-22, and then it doesn't really get you anywhere but right back where you felt in the beginning. Not only violated by the person in there that's actually causing you physical, mental, and sexual harm, but now you're being violated by the prison system and the government system to not be able to protect you, and therefore raping you of your rights, of what you need and what you deserve. And that's not fair. And then there's no advocate in there for you because you are stuck in this little bitty cell and you're vulnerable to everything around you with no possible way of having any safe haven of where to go. And they think that that doesn't affect somebody. Anyway, that's my take. So what can you do? There are many ways for survivors to heal from sexual assault. For some survivors, part of healing process may involve the following: getting involved in efforts to support other survivors, raising awareness of sexual violence, working towards preventing sexual violence, and getting involved to change the laws and policies about the crimes of sexual violence of the treatments of survivors. Now, like I said, I have a lot here to read, but I don't think I'm really going to go through it all, because there's some stories on here of inmates that I really would like to touch base on. Because I could sit here and I can talk and talk and talk. And like I said, I have not been in prison. I have not been in that level of vulnerability, if you will, that level of solitude, that level of confinement, but also the level of being at the mercy of people who really could give a shit less about whether or not you're even there. They don't care what your story is. They don't care why you're there. They don't care about, and I'm not saying all of them are like that, because I know there are some really decent ones out there that do care. But they have all these programs. Oh, let's go sign up for this. This will get you a time cut. Let's do this. That'll get you a time cut. And the government gives them grants to do certain programs and whatnot. And they also have programs that the government gives. And I used to have this information from me. I'll have to dig it up and maybe put it in a different podcast. I know it was in one of my other podcasts. I think Prisoner Past the Sentencing. I think I touched base on that. They have a grant to the government that actually pays employers to actually hire felons. And what they do is they give them a certain length of time to let that felon basically come in there and prove themselves. I can't remember if it's a couple weeks or a couple months or whatever it is. And the government actually pays this employer a certain amount of money to give that felon a chance at a new start. And the employer is not out anything because they're getting money from the government. But if the felon doesn't work out, then then they let the felon go. They let the person go. And then, then they just hire somebody else. And they can actually keep doing that. They can keep, hiring, a felon and then let him go and then hire another and let him go and just keep getting these grants. But also, too, I know that there are organizations out there that only hire felons. But as a felon, I know quite a few of them that have run into basically brick walls, if you will, of not having the opportunity to start their life over. And, they go in prison and they have all this rehabilitation stuff and all these programs and everything. And, hey, let's have you take this class, or let's get your certification, and let's get your, ID and your social security number and your birth certificate and all this stuff you're going to need when you get back on the outside world. And then, hey, let's do this, that, and the other and get you prepared so you can get out, get a job, get your life started and whatever. And, hey, we might give you a time cut. And if we remember to give you a time cut, because then you might have to look at your own file and fight for your time cut because you'll get lost in the system because there's just so many people in prison that, it gets overlooked. So you have to stay on top of your own case to take care of yourself, to look out for yourself. And that's if they listen to you. So you start your life, and this might be getting off subject, but it's really kind of not. Because you get out of prison, and you're trying to find a home, you're trying to find a job, you're trying to find financial stability, you're trying to get a loan maybe, or you get a car, get your license back maybe, or maybe your license was suspended and now you're stuck. And maybe you're behind on your child support. Maybe that's why you're in jail. So when you get out, your license is, you don't get your license. They're suspended because you were in jail for back child support. You need to get a job. And if you don't get a job to pay your back child support, then you're going to end back up in prison. And then you have to figure out how to get to that job because you don't have a license now. But somehow you're going to have to get there. But you can't have your driver's license. But, hey, you need to find a way to get to work and pay your support. Because if you don't, then you're going to end up back in jail. How is that fair? If you do your sentence and you do your time, then when you get out, that should be it. Society should not be allowed to continue to have you serve your sentence for the rest of your life. Nowhere when you get committed and do your sentencing does it say, and by the way, you're going to work your ass off to rehabilitate yourself, but when you get out, you're going to serve your sentence for the rest of your life because you're going to have stipulations on things that you cannot do. Because, hey, you're a felon. Not, hey, you're a rehabilitated human being that is trying to start his life over and do the right thing. Instead, most people go out there and they hit roadblocks and then they can go back into the life of crime that they know because that's all they know on how to survive and provide for their family. There's something wrong with that system. And then more people end up back into the system. And then the taxpayers are going to house these inmates, if you will, that are continuously going into the system, being rehabilitated, but continuously being violated at the same time. So why can't they take taxpayers' money or some of the grant money and hire new people and more people in there to be able to provide a safe environment for those that need a safe environment, that are vulnerable and at the mercy of one person out of 10. So when somebody goes in and takes a shower or might go to the day room, or might go make a phone call, or might go, I don't know, to the laundry, or whatever the case may be, what happens? Because I'm sure, I'm not going to say I'm sure because I don't know, but I'm going to speculate that there's not a correctional officer walking with each individual person going to their destinations. So then they're at the mercy of what? Cameras on the wall? What are you going to do with a camera? And what are they going to do? Are they going to get to you in time before the damage is done? Are they even sitting there looking at the camera? Because there's a lot of cameras there. Maybe, maybe not. You might think that they're cameras. Maybe they're dummy cameras, cutbacks or whatever. Who knows? Because I would speculate that, I'm going to say this and try not to laugh, that the government's not always on the up and honest, and that the government are not criminals themselves, because we all know that's a bunch of hogwash. So, anyway, my opinion. So I'm going to read a couple of stories, and then I'll come back to some resources. And this might shed a light on some stuff. Because like I said, I got out a lot of information here, and I only think some of it needs to be talked about, honestly. And sometimes I print off more than what I read, but then I get to talking and stuff, and, it kind of goes from there. So, anyway. So it says, if you are an inmate, this is on rain.org, by the way, RAINN.org. And this is the same organization I was talking about a minute ago. If you're an inmate or a former inmate or know an inmate who has survived a sexual assault while in prison, there are resources available to you. Now, I'm going to say this, like I was saying before, if there's an inmate in there and let's hypothetically say that you write a letter or you are on the phone with somebody that you entrust and let them know what is going on with you. Because maybe that is the only way that you feel that you can try to figure something out in a system that you are not confined in. Like basically saying you're reaching out to help and not from the people that are causing you the harm. Does that make sense? You're not trying to reach out to the people that are hurting you. You're trying to reach out to outside help in order to get intervention from the ones that are not intervening where you need them to. So let's hypothetically say that you get a hold of somebody you entrust. What is that person to do? So then that person has to figure out, okay, where do I go for now to be an advocate for this person who is sitting in there and continuously being violated and not getting any type of intervention, any type of security, any type of anything. They're still going to be victim. And so then there are resources for that situation. This website has a lot of things on it. If you have not checked it out, please do so, because there is a lot on there. And that might also help people that are on the outside be able to help those that they love on the inside. And unfortunately, sometimes, prison suicide happens. And murder inside the prison happens. There's a lot of crime that happens within the walls. And it's not, I guess I say this, is prison, and I say this respectfully to anybody who's been incarcerated, prison is its own city. Because they have their own laws, they have their own neighborhood, they have their own resources, they have their own rules, they have their own, whatever, people that, government or whatever overseers of it. And then you live in this community that you are stuck in. And the only way out is only one of a few ways. But when you are fighting something that has engulfed you in ways that you can't even begin to even put into words or feelings, that has basically just numbed you and made you dormant and feeling hollow and all these other things of emotions and feelings that you have, and you have no way of an outlet of any direction of all. You're sitting there in your cell, in your mind, and basically just, you're not giving up. You're not giving anything. It's being taken from you. You're not, and even if you are a victim and you just got to the point where you're just like, whatever, just do whatever and get it done and over with. So then maybe you might think, well, I'm consenting. No, you're not. If you feel that you have no choice and it's not something you want, but you feel like your life is in danger, so you just like, for your own life safety, that's basically, I guess you can say, a self-defense mechanism that you're using so that way you don't get yourself killed or even worse. Because if you are just like whatever and don't necessarily fight it, then you're not going to have as much physical, I guess, I don't even know the word, devastation. It's physical mutilation, basically. Because sometimes some people can be more aggressive. They might find objects to use and basically permanently sever you in places that just are just very, I don't even know the word to even put into words. And if you are a victim to that, I'm going to speculate that I don't need to fill that blank in for you, because I'm sure you have sat in your head long enough by now. If you have survived that level in your head, you're already way past whatever word I could ever even put out there. And some people are not, some people don't survive. Some people cannot handle it. Some people do not, they kill themselves. They feel like there's no other out. And why depend on the system when the system is continuously not intervening and not necessarily allowing it to happen, but not making the proper availability of protection that is deserved to a human being that is in their care. And it doesn't matter if they're a felon or if they're a prisoner or whatever. They're a human being. They're a person. They are in there as a person. They might just be a number to the government, but they have a first and last and middle name. They have an identity. You strip them of their identity when you hand them a number. They don't even know who they are. They're a number. Hey, what's your name? My number's blah, blah, blah. They're told what to do, where to go, how to do it, when they can cross over, when they can eat, when they can go take a poop, when they can go take a shower, when they can go do the laundry, when they can shave, when they can shower. They're told to do everything. So when they come out, they have to learn how to be a human being again. They have to learn how to make decisions for themselves again. They have to learn how to not have to watch their back at everywhere they go. They have to understand that people are going to come up behind them that are going to talk to them or approach them or even just pass them, walking by, that they don't react because they're used to a different reality than where they're at. And then when you have somebody that has been violently abused or a crime committed against, on top of that, additionally, what are they supposed to do? They're handed into society, and society is saying, oh, you're a felon. Yeah, we can't do this. You don't know their story. You don't know why they're a felon. You don't know why they were incarcerated. You don't know one damn thing about them. You probably don't even know their name. And you probably don't even know their DOC number. So who are you to tell them that they are not capable of having a home, having a job, having a vehicle, having a life, having an identity, or deserve the same things in life that you do? Because maybe you have committed crimes and you just haven't been caught. So there's that. Just saying, my opinion. Anyway, on this website it says, what is prison rape? Prison rape includes any act of sexual violence committed against an inmate. The perpetrator may be another inmate, or they may be a staff member who works in the prison, jail, or detention facility. Now, I'm going to say this. I understand that there's a lot that goes on behind bars. There's a lot of illegal activity. There is a lot of things that people have been arrested for, that they're doing time for, that they're still continuing to do behind bars. There's a lot of contraband that comes in. There's a lot of things that come through. And there are only certain availabilities, if you will, on how that happens. There are only a certain amount of ways that is available to somebody. And there's a lot of crookedness in people that are trying to straighten other people out. And sometimes some of the government officials and officers and whatnot, I'm not saying this on everybody. So if you are an officer or something that, by all means, everybody's a different story. But I don't know you from Joe Blow up the road. So I'm just talking in general. And if it doesn't apply to you, then, please listen and understand that this is a thing. And if it is something you're doing, shame on you. Because you are then no different and need to sit in the jail cell right next to the other person. And if they are being violated and you don't do nothing about it, ask yourself, what would you do if your kid was incarcerated? Or your wife? Or your husband? Or your mom? Or your dad? And they were being sexually violated. And nobody did anything about it. How would you feel? Because it does take one person to do something that is right, intervene, make stuff happen. Be an advocate. Be a human being that does something that they are supposed to do. You go and you apply for a job and you do this testing and you go through all this evaluation and stuff, and you swear to uphold the law and da-da-da-da-da. And then when people come in for visitation, you pat people down. You have them sit on this, whatever, to where you check in places that they have that, are checked into. And, you're doing all this stuff. And you have all this protocol in place and all these, whatever. Let's sign off on this training. Let's learn this paperwork. We're going to memo out and a memorandum, and we're going to change this and do an addendum and blah, 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 blah. And hey, let's have a meeting in the morning to discuss this option and new protocol we're going to have. But then we're going to do this, that, and the other. And you're just as crooked as the person that you're trying to say that you're trying to help. You do all this positive stuff to make a difference in the world and want to make a difference with a person that is coming in there to try to redo their life. And you are just continuously doing everything but helping that. Because you are one of the options of how this stuff gets in. And you are one of the options that have the authority to allow things to happen. And you also are in the position to have the authority to violate somebody and make it be swept under the rug. And in the meantime, you might continuously make that victim be more of a victim in the system, to where you might make up charges on them. You might, put them in solitary confinement longer. You might withhold them from privileges, whatever the case may be on what your authority is, because you just want to be a dick. Because you can. Because you think and I'm not saying this, that it's just men. There are women that also rape and violate offenders. It's just not the male population. Women do it as well. Because they are an authority figure, and that person who is getting rehabilitated, who is wanting to get out and just do their time, most of the time, is at the mercy of just that. And in one of the stories I had here, it actually really... I'm going to see if I can find it. There was, I'm just going to read them, because there was one guy in here, and I'll come across the story as I read. He actually had a prisoner have the correctional officer buzz him in this other inmate's cell. And the correctional officer did. And the prisoner who came in the cell didn't belong in that cell. And the other guy didn't want him in there. And he raped the dude. And basically the victim defended himself. The guy had brought in, I want to say, a knife or something, and stabbed the dude, and then the guy got a hold of it and stabbed him or whatever. And anyway, long story short, the victim got prosecuted and got 12 more years. The victim did. There's something wrong with that story. That's just ridiculously beyond repair. And so anyway, I'm going to read some stories. So this first one is, hold on a minute. Roderick from Texas. For 18 months, from September 2000 to April 2002, I subjected to a system of gang-run sexual slavery at the James Alward prison in Texas. I was openly gay, first-time offender, convicted of a non-violent drug charge. And in other words, a target. After arriving at the facility, I was immediately pressured by gang members to sleep with someone in exchange for protection. At first, I resisted these approaches, but it wasn't long until I was raped. The perpetrator promised to keep me from being owned by the gangs if I would only have sex with him. Instead, he and his gang forced me to have sex with other gang members and also sold me my services to other inmates. I was being assaulted in the showers, stairwells, my cell, and other cells. After I made complaints to prison officials, they told me, "Go down there and fight like a man, or get a man." Prison officials also threatened me for exposing their misconduct by seeking help through the courts. Upon my release from prison in late 2003, I was diagnosed with severe PTSD and major depression. I was prescribed massive doses of medication. I took various jobs in the Austin area, counseling homeless young people, and working with many groups involved to fight for prison reform. I organized a prison rape information project with the Texas Association Against Sexual Assault, assisted other survivors re-entering back into society, and advocated for the rights of gay prisoners in hope of showing the world that prison rape has been ignored far too long. In the years of dealing with the reoccurring nightmares and horror as my traumatic experience, I sought help and spent endless hours in counseling sessions, all to not availability. I could not heal my broken spirit, heart, and my pride. In late 2007, my inaction and hopelessness brought on through my depression led to my return to incarceration. I now sit in a desert prison outside of the state of Texas, hoping through all of my fear and pain that someone out there was given a second chance of hope. My days are hopeful and my nights are lonely, but through faith, I know all things are possible to overcome. And then this, let me skip this one here. This one is a female, Shirley. 49-year-old Marilyn Shirley and is a Texas mother of 2 and a stepmother to 5. In 1998, she was sentenced to prison along with her husband for conspiracy to distribute drugs. The charges were brought with a customer at an auto body shop that tried to pay its bills with methamphetamine. Marilyn got a 4-year sentence and was fired after but freed after 32 months for good behavior. She says being a model prisoner did not stop an officer from raping her in the middle of the night. She said when he called her to the officer station, I had to put my sweatpants on, because to go down there in the middle of the night, which is basically what we slept in. But when I got down there, he locked the door behind me. The shades were drawn, which were usually isn't like that. And I said, Miller, what's going on? His name was Mike Miller, and he had just said, sit down and shut up. He picked up the telephone. He said, if a lieutenant heads over towards the camp, give me the signal. And he hung up the phone. And then he told me to stand up. And I thought he was fixing to handcuff me. Instead, he jerks me over into the storage room. I now have an idea of, what's going on. And I'm thinking, this is a joke. What's going on here? Just completely dumbfounded to what was fixing to happen. And then I swear his eyes just went stunned. And he said to me, oh yeah, it's going to happen. For the first 7 months, I really believed that I was in shock the whole time. The night before I got out, I told a senior officer that the head of the camp at the time, and she walked me down the next morning, and I turned in my sweatpants over to the camp administrator. The FBI came in and received the sweatpants from the camp administrator, and then they took it to the lab. It took almost a year for the sweatpants and the DNA to come back. You almost would think that it's not going to happen. Then one day the FBI called me and they said, well, we've got good news. They found his DNA on my sweatpants. By the time the civilian case against Mike Miller himself came up before the criminal case, so a jury awarded me $4 million in the civil suit against me, which he didn't have $4 million. I'll never see a penny of that. But I won that case. And then right after the criminal case came up, he got 12 and a half years on 5 different counts. I sit and wonder if I hadn't kept those sweatpants, who would have believed me, and what would have happened. You don't need to be breaking along going to prison. Maybe that sentence don't belong there. Thanks the main thing. I don't know what that's supposed to mean. Maybe they typed in the wrong place. But it says basically know that you do have rights. And she is now an advocate. She spends much of her time writing to members of Congress to help other victims of prison rape. This next story is the initials AH, dated August 30th of 96, and is from Indiana. I've been sentenced for DUI offense, my 3rd one. When I first came to prison, I had no idea what to expect. Certainly none of this. I'm a tall white male who unfortunately has a small amount of feminine characteristics and very shy. These characteristics have got me raped so many times. I have no more feelings physically. I have been raped by up to 5 black men and 2 white men at a time. I've had knives to my head and my throat. I have been fought and beat so hard that I didn't ever think I'd be straight again. One time when I refused to enter a cell, I was brutally attacked by staff and taken to segregation, though I had only wanted to prevent the same and worse by not locking up with my cellmate. There is no supervision after lockdown. I was given a conduct report. I explained to the hearing officer what the issue was. He told me that off the record, he suggests that I find a man I could and willingly have sex with to prevent these things from happening. I requested protection custody only to be denied. It is not available here. He also said that there was nowhere to run to, and it would be best for me to just accept things. I probably have AIDS now. I have great difficulty raising food to my mouth from shaking after nightmares or thinking too hard on all of this. I'd laid down without physical fight to be sodomized, to prevent so much damage and struggles and ripping and tearing. Though in not fighting, it has caused my heart and spirit to be raped as well, something I don't know if I'll ever forgive myself for. There's just so many here to read, and it's just devastating because one story alone is too many. I mean, one story alone is just too many. Here's one from Texas, September 13th of 96. It's fixed where if you're raped, the only way you can escape being a punk is if you rape someone. He said, yes, I know that's fully screwed, but that's how your head is twisted. After it's over, you may be disgusted with yourself, but you realize you're not powerless and that you can deliver as well as receive pain. Then it's up to you to decide whether you enjoy it or not. Most do. I don't. It's sick and depraved. It's also depressing when one of these boys, another name for turnout, come up to you for protection because they know you won't hurt them as much as because you have been going through it, and they don't have the nuts to break out themselves even when you tell them how. So then we have people that are being violated that now are violating. And it might be somebody who never even thought that would even cross their mind, or even think that they would even be capable of that level of violation. But maybe feel like that now is their only hope of survival. So not only are they being raped, but they're raping as well. Where is our system? Where's our system at? Where are our people at? Where are all the training and all the available resources at? We got all these resources and websites that people can go to. I mean, there are hundreds of them, but yet they have no resource and no help and no manpower in place to, I don't know. If they have as much of, on websites, if they had as many of that in the system, there might actually be some hope. But there's more websites, I believe, and more things that are typed up and printed up and available to read. But reading it and understanding it and implementing it, that's a whole different ballgame. And you can have all these advocates, you can have all this, out, and the other, whatever. But there are so many in the system. And then let's take it a step further. You think this ain't happening in juvenile court system? You think this ain't happening in juvenile with kids? There's kids that are being raped in the system. And I'm not saying they're any more or any less important as an adult. Because I don't care if they're a kid, an adult, or a great-great-great-great-great-grandma twice removed. That's a person. That's a human being. It still does damage. It still kills somebody. And you have a child that is not only dependent on the system, but they are vulnerable to the system that cares for them because they are a child. They are not an adult. They do not have the strength and the willpower and the knowledge and And even if an adult even has all that, violation is violation. And you even have adults in the system that are supposed to be in authority that are violating these children. You have correctional officers and government officials and whomever doing the same thing to our children. What is that going to do with that child? You think that child ain't going to be back up in that system? You think that child's not going to be affected? And they're not going to get out? And then what are they going to do? Because now whatever they were in juvenile for, let's say it's something petty. Hell, it could be even for truancy. Who knows? Nowadays, they'll just pick anything sometimes. But let's just hypothetically say it's a small little crime. But now this young individual, this innocent child, who is still a child, now has been violated in a way beyond an adult's expectations or deserving. But now a child has endured that level. And they get out, and now who are they? That little petty crime that they did to get in juvenile ain't nothing anymore compared to where their mind is going to go. And you think they're going to give a rat's ass about the system? What did the system do for them? What did authority do to them? Why do you think so many people have such an opinion on the system? Because the system is not working. The system sucks. The system is backwards. You got people that are cold-blooded killers that get out on technicalities, but then you have people that suffer from something that is beyond their mental capacity and control, that are condemned and sentenced for life. That's a little backwards. You have people that are in there for behind on child support that are felons. And I'm not saying that people should not pay their child support. But you have felons, people, okay, you have somebody sitting in there that has not paid their child support, and they are bunked up with somebody who has committed a higher crime. And that person is bunked up with somebody who's a higher crime. And so on and so on. And you might have somebody in there that is in there for a length of time, that is going to be in there for a length of time. They've been there for a while. And they actually run that neighborhood that you're in. What is that going to do? Somewhere in there has to be a change in the system. You got all this rehabilitation bullshit going on for that exact person that you rehabilitated, so to speak, now a victim back into the system. Because you would not let them serve their time out. You continuously allow that time to continue on, even past those doors that they are supposedly free now. So what are they going to do? They're going to survive. The only way they think they know how. And some of them don't even know what that answer is. But hey, let's judge them. Let's down-nose them. Let's limit their ability to have rehabilitation, real rehabilitation. You know how you rehabilitate somebody? You give them a chance. You give them a chance. They don't need to prove anything to you. They more or less want to prove something to themselves. They're incarcerated in a world where their family is waiting on them to come back out. And their things and their letters and all the promises they give to their loved ones, they mean it when they say it. They want that more than anything. But when they get out, they're discouraged. They feel like they're still a failure. They're still worthless. They still have let their family and their loved ones down. And we as a whole think just because it's not us, it's not our problem. We could choose somebody else to work in our employer. We could choose somebody else to live in our house. We can choose somebody else to do whatever we need. Why can't you let them have that same spot? Because I guarantee they're more apt to want to prove more than what any of your other employees could ever possibly prove. And what do you got to lose by giving them a chance? Turnover? You're going to have that anyway. Because if you're a judgmental employer, I guarantee your employees aren't happy. Because if you don't have some sense of human compassion and understanding, empathy, to a certain point, because I know business is business, but you know what? Your business would not be ran if it wasn't for the human being that is holding it together while you go play golf or whatever. Because it might be your company, you might be the supervisor, you might be this, that, and the other, but at the end of the day, you're still all in it together. Provide a product or whatever it is you're doing. And if you limit that, where is that going to put everybody? That's what's wrong with this world. And let's say you have a prisoner that gets out and they have endured so much damage that they're trying to cope with being able to even handle having a job because they can't even handle breathing. And I understand as an employer, maybe that's not your problem. And in a sense of business, no, it's not. Why should it matter to you that if a human being is trying to survive their own life in their head and whatever they've endured? It's not your problem as a business, and I understand that. But at the same time, too, that doesn't just pertain to a prisoner or an inmate or anybody that comes out of the system. That's with any human being. Because some people, they have a difficulty being able to handle things that you will never understand. And sometimes it's easier to pass judgment than to try to be understanding, compassionate, and forthcoming, if you will, on helping that person to survive and actually be able to handle a job. That you might just be surprised if that person will not turn out to be the best employee that you've ever had in your life. And why? Because you gave them a chance. You gave them a chance on something that they don't have. And I'm not saying that it's all up to you to hand them roses and candy and be fine and dandy and whatever. But you could be that one person. That one person that makes a difference for that human being that is just trying to survive life. It just takes one. Just as in the system with everything else. You got all this crime, I got all these stories I can read, all these resources I can give, all this stuff I can say. But you know what? It comes down to, why should I have to? Why should I have to? And I sit here and I talk about a subject that, no, I can't relate to being raped in prison. I've been raped, but I have not been raped in prison. And I could sit here and speculate on what it's like to be a felon and what it's like to come out into the world and what it's like to try to get a job or get a house and this, that, and the other. Discrimination, if you will. And you get employers that say, oh, no, we don't discriminate. We hire felons. Yeah, you tell people that. And you have somebody that fills out that job application. And guess what you don't do? Because you can say whatever you want to say to make it look good. Because, hey, image is everything, right? But whether or not you back up that image says more about you than what people see. Because one day, someday, that might just very well be you in that situation. Because it does take one incident of one choice of things that you probably would never even think that you would ever do. Maybe it's protecting your family. Maybe it's providing for your family. Maybe it's getting caught up in something. Whatever the case may be. Or maybe you live in the wrong state, that in one state it's legal to do this, and in another state it's not. And you just happen to be in the state now that it's not. But now you're going to do time. But if you lived in the state that it was okay, you'll be just fine. You don't have to worry about it. So it depends, I guess, where you live on, the big deal of what the crime is. But no here nor there. Let's just hypothetically say the tables have turned. And let's say maybe that person, that inmate, that incarcerated felon who now is out into the world, and now let's say that person has started their own company, because most of the time I'm gathering that's pretty much the direction most of them probably end up having to take. And I'm not saying that is, I'm just speculating, but let's hypothetically say that that's what happens, and they start their own company, and here you are getting out of the system, and boy oh boy, how's that rehabilitation going? And you need to go find a job. And you apply for this job, and you're thinking, oh, they say they take felons. And they do take felons, because that person who owns knows all too well how it is to start over. And maybe they only hire felons. And not because they can get a grant from the government, but because they believe in giving people second chances. Because they've lived that level. So now you're getting out, and you need a job. So you apply for this job at this said company. And lo and behold, the owner of that company is the very same person that you did not even care to even evaluate, to give a chance, to care to listen to you said no. Can't do it. And maybe they were more than qualified for the job, but you would not do it. So now you come into this person, and you have the audacity to want a job there with him. And think that you are due that, that you should, that you have, that you're qualified and you deserve that job. But let's take it a spin different. There's something different in that person than you. Guess what they do? They hire you. They give you a second chance. Because they're not you. And I'm not even going to begin to say I know what it is like to be even comprehend sitting behind a solitude of your mind. Because even when the bars and the cell blocks close down, where does your head go for safety? Because you have nothing but time to think. And if you are being violated, if you are being mishandled, if your rehabilitation is more or less straight up a joke, if you will. I knew somebody who graduated high school, was in prison, and they were going to give this person a time cut if they got their GED. Okay. They already had they already graduated high school, but they could get a time cut if they got their GED. What is that? And I just, this is just an example of rehabilitation as a joke. And I'm not saying some things do not work. And I'm not saying that some people do not come out and don't start their life over and don't do the right things and don't get back into society, whatever that's worth. Because there are people like that. There are opportunities. But when you sever a level of somebody's being, their soul, basically. When you rape their soul, they live in a hell for the rest of their life with no hopes of parole. And only God can help them. And only pray that they don't purposely want to go visit him. Because suicide is a thing. Suicide is a thing. I don't care what neighborhood you're in, what nationality you are, what age you are, what your number is, what your name is, what color hair you have, what eyeballs you have, whether you're a male or a female or in between or whatever. And I don't mean that disrespectfully. It doesn't matter. It doesn't keep a zip code. It doesn't keep an hour. It doesn't keep a time. It doesn't keep a state line. It takes a life. It takes a human being's life. Somebody's something. But that person was a someone. They matter. I don't care if they're sitting in the system, they're sitting on top of the system, they're a part of the system, or they don't even know how to spell system. They are a person and they matter. And if you are a victim, and I say this with all due respect and as deeply and sentimentally and compassionately as I can, my heart goes out to you in whatever way comforts you. There are just no words that can fill the emptiness in you. And there are resources out there. And if you are a male, do not think you're any less of a don't think you're any less than a man, because you've endured levels of things that have tested and stripped you of your manlyhood, in the sense of men are supposed to be strong, they're supposed to be providers, they're supposed to be protectors, they're supposed to be, the do-all, so to speak. They're supposed to be the heavy and carry the weight. They're supposed to be the ones who hold it together. And when you are violated and stripped of that, where does your manlyhood go then? As a human being, man. And that in itself is something that I could not relate to, obviously, but that is something, a different level. And I'm not saying the women are any less important. That's not what I'm trying to say. It's a whole different level of survival, of, I don't know. I mean, like I said, there's no really word or feeling to put into it. And if you are that victim, like I said, I don't need to fill in that word, because you've already filled it in with whatever piece that you've needed to already in the countless nights and days that it's replayed over and over in your mind. That spot has already been filled. And no word that I have can go in there and put a Band-Aid on it and make it all better. And even for a female, I mean the same respect to female victims, and for children. Our kids are our future, and we are ruining them. They are going to be They're going to be put in a world that we are destroying. And we are not going to be here to protect them from ourselves. Because we are doing damage to our children. Thinking that just because we're an adult, we have all the answers. We have all the things that we can do. And they just need to sit down and listen to us. And do as I say and not as I do. We as parents, as human beings, as adults, have gotten too big for our britches on not setting guidelines and morals and family aspects with our children, because we are so inclined to just doing whatever, to be sufficed with whatever, that our kids are losing morals and values, stability, direction. The list goes on and on. And our children are teaching us that we gosh, sometimes our children are more grown than what we are. Because they have to grow up too fast. When was the last time a kid actually got to be a kid? When was the last time they actually got to have a childhood? When's the last time they actually spent time as a kid with their parents, as a family? And that is going to be the value and the morals and the direction that our world's going to go in. And we are not going to be here to mess it up anymore for them. And they're going to have to fix our mistakes. And hope it doesn't affect their kid. And then, where's the system? I don't know. Excuse me. I don't know where the system's at. Because the system has gotten so backwards that certain levels of authority don't even remember their authority. So, there's that. But if you are suffering in any way, please know there are resources out there. And I pray that you find one that helps and can help you in the way that you need. And excuse me. There's a lot of study materials. There's a lot of organizations that can teach organizations and companies and employers and employees what they can do to utilize to make a difference in this area. And I would think as a human being, in the sense of authority, if you will, would want to uphold the respect that you so demand and actually deserve it. And I say that with all due respect to ones out there that this does not pertain to. Because I do know that there are ones out there that my heart goes out to you. Because I understand all too well being in a situation that you are just as vulnerable with your life as a prisoner is. And unfortunately, the system does not work for you either. Because where's your protection? You're one person with, 10 inmates maybe at a time? Yeah, you're trained to do a takedown, but what are you going to do in a takedown? When you got 10 freaking inmates sitting there. What takedown are you going to do? They're going to take you down. Unless by some chance, you might have an inmate that is, believe it or not, respectful. And disciplined, and I don't know, doesn't step out of line, knows their place, and respects you. And respect goes a long way. You want them to respect you. You need to do the same. I don't care if you're an authority figure or not. You still are a human being. You can't expect respect and not even know what that word means. And there are also correctional officers and authority figures in the system, like I said, that are violated and raped as well by inmates and even by other employees. There has to be something done with that. Because and I'm not going to say there is a difference, but, and I mean this all due respect, there's a difference in being in the world of a planet Earth, of a globe that spins around or whatever, a big huge Earth that is filled with billions of people. There's a difference between that and a prison house. The magnitude of people in the world outside of those walls is way greater in magnitude of population than that prison building. So there should be more of a level of intervention availability to that prison facility or jail facility, because there's prison and jail are different. There should be something more constructive in that facility, because its magnitude of population is nowhere near the availability of the outside world of population. And the persons that control that resource and constructiveness and protection and all the other positive things that should be going on in an idealistic world, they are in the system. They do have authority. They do have availability to make differences and changes, and they do have the ability to advocate for the human beings that they incarcerate. The human beings that are under their watch. That more happens in a 15-minute walkthrough than what anybody wants to admit. And just because it's quiet at the moment, that means something ain't going on. You think they don't know when your checks go through? You don't think there aren't diversions? You gotta have a backup plan to your backup plan. Because whatever plan you got going on ain't working, so you need to figure something else out. Because this is happening. This is a reality check. And if it needs to go to the top, so be it. What's it gonna hurt? I'll tell you what, it won't hurt. No. I don't know what it wouldn't hurt. It wouldn't hurt. It would not hurt to take it to the higher up. Because it's already killing somebody because you're not. And you could be that one person, that one prison building or jail facility building that sets the example and sets the bar at a high enough level for other places to follow suit in that same entity. And that would be way more volume speaking as a human being, as a facility, as a person that has the capability of doing so, than any training piece of paper printed on a printer that doesn't even do real signatures anymore. Everything is pick a signature that you want to adopt on there, and the computer will sign it for you. But hey, this is legit. It'd be worth more than any of that. It should not have to take a person's life, a person's soul, or even a story that needs to be told, read, or ignored to make a difference. Because I think that the system needs to be held more accountable. You got all these prisoners and all these incarcerated people that are getting out and having their lives still on the outside, inside walls. But what accountability and sentencing, if you will, of repercussion and consequences do you get for the crimes that you allow and let happen in your facility? What justice do they get in the justice system? Just my thought. And if you are suffering with anything like this, please reach out for help. And I know that's easier said than done. Believe you me, I do. Because when you are suffering something, it's not easy to reach out. It's not easy to take that level of magnitude of a step. People think, oh, you're depressed, get over it, or, oh, hey, you need to do this, that, and the other, you need to reach out, or, hey, if you're feeling bad, or you feel like you're going to kill yourself, call somebody, or, go somewhere, or do something different, or, you know what, unless you have been at that level of magnitude of that spot in your mentality world, if you will, that level of darkness and depth that goes beyond the abyss could ever even swim and travel. If you have never been there, then you need to sit down and shut up. Because you don't know what you're talking about. And I speak that from experience because I have been there. I have straight up been there. And I know all too well the judgment I have had by people that supposedly loved me, cared about me, or knew me, and knew I was going through things. But when I mentioned where my mentality was at, I was told that I needed to get over it. It was my feelings. They didn't want to hear it. That's stupid. I was mentally unfit. This, that, and the other. Whatever. I just wanted attention. And you know what that did to me even more? Make me think, what would it hurt anybody if I wasn't here? What would they really even care? Because I'm reaching out for help and nobody even cares. Nobody is even taking me serious. Nobody is blinking an eye. Nobody even wants to hear why I feel that way. But then has the audacity to judge me because I'm at that level. Because, hey, maybe I'm not acting myself. Well, hell no, I'm not acting myself. I don't even want myself to be here. Why would I act like myself? Hello? What does that tell you? Well, instead of judging me on me not acting myself and I'm acting out of character, or maybe I've got, not talking and I'm not answering phone calls, or I'm not going anywhere and I'm staying home. What's that got to do with you? Well, I've tried to call them. They're not returning my calls. I've asked them to go out, but they don't go. I've been trying, and they just, it's whatever. You know what? It's not about you. Sit the hell down. Because if you don't want to listen to why they feel the way they are, who the hell are you to open your mouth and judge them? And I say that with all due respect of being a victim on that level of I'm a suicidal survivor. And I have been on both ends because I've had a very close best friend of mine that shot herself and killed herself. And her son killed himself. And I've had other friends that have tried to kill themselves. And it's a level. And if you haven't been there, count your blessings. Even more so. Because everybody might have suicidal thoughts. Oh, I wish I was dead. I'm just going to kill myself. Maybe people don't want me to be alive. There's a difference. And that's probably pretty much on a lot of people's minds and reactions to things. Because everybody's got something going on with them. And everybody are at different levels of magnitude of their mental stability, if you will, because society and the rest of the world has done so much damage to everybody that makes everybody feel like it's a sin, if you will, respectfully, to even be themselves. Because they're not deemed, I don't know, however society wants to deem them at, that suits them best. And I am tired of living in a world that I look into a mirror at and I see everybody else but myself. And there are many more people like me in the world. I guarantee it. So unless you have actually been at the deeper level, the deep end, if you will, and I'm not trying to belittle anybody that's had suicide thoughts. Please don't misconstrue that. I don't mean that at all. But it is a whole different life. And most suicides are not even intended. They're accidental. And people, I say this, let me rephrase that. Like I said, I'm a suicidal victim survivor. And my whole life, I've wanted to die. I've been suicidal my whole life. I wish I was dead, this, that, and the other. I always talked crap to myself. When I was about 5 or 6 years old, I think, I told my mom I wish I could take my head off, shake it out, and put it back on. Now, what in the hell was going on with me at 5 or 6 years old that I felt I needed to do that? And why didn't my mom ever take me to get help? But you know what? Things were different back then than they are now. And people's way of thinking is so selfish. It is devastating to be a part of. And it got to the point in my life that it went to a whole new level. And I've talked about this in my other podcast. I'm actually very candid in my podcast. I have nothing to hide. I don't even know who listens to my podcast, and I don't really want to know because I'm not walking on eggshells on my podcast. If you don't like what I'm saying, then get off of it. And if it offends you, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, but not sorry. But I would know that. It's either a guilty conscience or you just have a deeper problem than what I'll ever be able to touch. But no here nor there, it's my podcast. And I'm very candid on myself. For one, it's very therapeutic to myself, but also, too, it might be that one difference in somebody's life that is listening to this, or my other ones, that they needed to hear in their ear. And I hate that, because I hate that anybody would have to feel at that level. But at the same time, I am grateful and blessed that I have had the ability to be able to do such a moment for that person and myself. And I have had to learn how to do coping mechanisms for myself. And I've had to learn how to do backup coping mechanisms for myself. Because when you get into a train of thought, or a lack thereof a thought, I should say, sometimes you have to intervene yourself and just pray wholeheartedly you're strong enough to do so. And I've talked about that before. Sometimes I'll sing songs in my head or out loud. I say my ABCs. That seems to be my thing right now. I'll say my ABCs, and then when I say "won't you sing with me," I'll take a deep breath and I'll start again. Sometimes it's gotten so bad I've had to do say and do sign language at the same time, trying to occupy and I guess double stimulate my mind, if you will, on different directions to separate me from the level of attack of emotion that I'm trying to survive through at that moment. And when I can actually say my ABCs all the way down to "won't you say them with me," without hesitation, without tears, without not being able to catch my breath, until I can reach that moment, I continue. But if it gets to the point where I acknowledge myself in that moment, I've tried that coping mechanism and it's not working, then I need to have another plan. Because depending on the situation, depending on the panic attack or anxiety attack or PTSD episode or whatever the case may be, the magnitude that's behind it, of emotion, of where my mentality is at that moment, will determine the level of intervention I need to give myself. Because if I waited for somebody else to come and help me, I would have been dead already. Because in the end of it all, you have to forgive yourself for wanting to kill yourself. And it's not because you want to die. You just want the pain to stop. You just want the pain to stop. And you are not a bad person for that. Do not feel guilty. Do not apologize for that. Embrace it. Learn from it. Guide yourself. Heal yourself. Redirect yourself in positive ways as much as you can, and positive reinforcement. But teach yourself to know yourself and to learn and remember who you are. You're you. Don't ever apologize for being you. Because you might find somebody that looks like you, maybe have the same characteristics, same hobbies, same habits. But there's only one you. And don't never be ashamed of your mistakes. Because, and I say that with respect, You are a human being. Life does not come with an instruction manual. And what manuals life does have in our way of life, if you will, excuse me, on structure and guidance, is manipulated and reconfigured, if you will, to accommodate those that need them directed on however they need them directed when it's convenient, I feel. But that's my opinion. Not all of them. I will retract on some of that. But that being said, you have rights as a person, as a human being that walks this earth. You have the right to be you. You have the right to be you. And I am teaching myself that right now. And I am wholeheartedly breathing through one moment at a time on it. Because actually, right before I did this podcast, I had to talk myself down. Because I was about to go into an attack on myself, a panic, anxiety. Excuse me. But I have talks with myself. And I know that might sound crazy to some people, but I don't care. Crazy is the new normal, by the way. I wear my craziness with pride. Because that is who I am. But you do not know my story. And if the only thing people call me in the end of it all is crazy, okay. Okay. Then I've served my purpose to you, I guess. Because I'm really tired of being abused. I'm really tired of being belittled. I'm tired of being manipulated. I'm tired of being downgraded. I'm tired of feeling like I need to apologize for who I am, what I've done, what I've accomplished, where I've come from, but also the pain, trauma, and heartache that I have survived because I am sitting here today talking to you. And I have accomplished a lot in a year and a half with myself as a woman, as a mother, as a child, as a human being, as a person, as a child of God, as a person that occupies oxygen on this planet. I have come farther in a year and a half in myself than I have my whole complete life. And I am pretty damn proud of myself. Even at times I don't feel proud of myself, I keep reminding myself that it's okay. I'm not being selfish for thinking of myself. I'm not being selfish for telling myself that I'm smart, that I'm intelligent, that I'm creative, that I'm artistic, that I'm compassionate, that I'm gentle, that I'm kind, that I'm understanding, I'm, whatever I choose to tell myself, that I'm wanted, that I'm loved, that I'm needed, that I'm me, and that's okay. And I will never, I pray I will never feel like that I need to sit in a spot because I felt that was the only place I needed to be, because I wanted the pain to stop. And by the grace of God and whatever else intervened me at that moment, my family and friends would have been mourning me in a casket and talking about me, instead of talking to me and listening to me when I was begging and pleading for help for my own life. But you feel free to have a conversation amongst yourself about me when I'm gone. How dare you? But you know what? I say that with respect because I have come to learn in my life that unless you've gone through it, people might say they understand, but you really, really don't. You might be able to respect the emotion, but you don't understand that level. And be blessed that you don't. And you might just be that one person that actually listened to somebody that needed that at that moment, that made a difference in the very next breath that they took. And what would it hurt you to do that, as opposed to sitting at their funeral wondering what you missed? Why didn't you see it coming? What happened? Well, you would have known if you would have took the time to listen. You would have already known. And I'm not saying it's your fault. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying it is that deep. It is that deep. And it's way beyond 6 foot under. I guarantee it. Because everybody's life that it's going to affect when that person is gone is going to be laying over that casket, missing that person. And that pile is going to be high. And that person laying in that casket will never even know it, because they will think nobody cared, nobody wanted them, and why would anybody miss them? Who would even notice if they were gone? But hey, it's standing room only at their funeral services. And cars piled all the way down the road. They will never know. They could be in a room full of people and feel very alone. And sometimes they can be in a room full of chairs dressed up like people. Imaginary people, if you will. And feel more safe and at home than anywhere else. Because finally, they found somebody who understood. And they're not even there. The air. The air cared. The very same air that was taking their breath away had a ripple in it somewhere and saved that person's life in one moment. And I guess it depends on whoever makes that ripple for them that makes the difference. Because you don't need to be an advocate to be there. You should not have to take a protest or a rally or petitions or government laws or whatever. Rules, regulations, training. You should not take any of that to care and be compassionate about another human being. It should just be the way of life. Because it doesn't matter what color you are, what nationality, what religion, what age you are, whatever characteristic you want to put on somebody to identify them. In the end, we all do the exact same thing. We die. But guess what? Before that, we matter. Don't put a label on somebody just to suffice you. Because when it comes down to it, on the tombstone it's not going to say, here lies a black man. Here lies a Chinese female. Here lies a gay woman. Or here lies, I don't know, a red-headed albino. Okay, that's not possible, but it could be possible. It's not going to say that on a tombstone. It's not going to say that at all. No, here lies a freaking human being with a name that has 2 dates on it and dashes. And it's a dash in the middle that made their life. And the death is what they survived. And that's my thought. And I'm going to leave it at that. So I'll get on a whole different topic, and we're almost at 2 hours. So, as I say in all my other podcasts, so if you are suffering in any way, there is a suicide prevention hotline, 988. It depends on what area you're in. Know your resources of emergency services. There are many first responders and officers and fire officers and medics and nurses and doctors, and there are people out there that care. There really are. There are people that are trained. There are people that are compassionate and loving, and there are people just like you that exist in this world. And there will be somebody that will be happy to fill that chair that's empty for you when you need it. And try to know your coping mechanisms, because you might be the very one that saves your own life. Because sometimes your own breath can suffocate you. And knowing how to intervene that might be the only way to save your own life in that moment. And I pray wholeheartedly for each and every one of you that you have the capability to be able to take that next breath when that moment faces you. Because it is that deep. And as I always say, one thing in life you can't get back, and that's your time. And if you have dedicated to me and listening to me, I wholeheartedly appreciate that, because you've given time up in your life that you will never get back that you have shared with me. And that means a lot to me. And I am very blessed to have the opportunity to share time in my life to share with you. And I pray wholeheartedly that it does. I pray for us. That's all I can say. I pray wholeheartedly for us. Because if there is not a change in the world, there won't be a world to change. And our children deserve more than that. And as a parent myself, as a grandparent, I've made a lot of mistakes in my life. But one mistake I have not made is saving my own life. Because at the end of it all, it's my life laying up in that casket. and why other people might be grieving me, my life is the one that's over. And I won't know anything else. And on that note, I'm going to close up for now. And if you have not checked out my other podcasts, please feel free to do so. I have a Podbeam account, and I also have YouTube. And I save my Podbeam on my YouTube channel, so this will be on both of them. My last podcast I did was men being raped in the military. And that is also a very big, huge intervention that needs to be done as well. I don't understand so many different levels that go on. And I, as a person that I am, cannot wrap my head around where to even begin on trying to heal a world that society and the government continues to rape us of. And we say we make changes, we say we need changes. And I'm sure there have been changes in some places, because obviously I'm at a loss for words on saying the right thing, because I don't really think that our words sometimes even make the difference. Sometimes we need to just be the difference. Because we're worth more than a training seminar, in my opinion. And on that, I'm going to close out. So once again, thank you for joining me, and I hope everybody has a safe and blessed night. Good night.